Thank you, Victor, for getting us through that very long reading from the narrative lectionary. And thank you all for your prayers and for your well wishes. It's good to be back with you all. Thank you. So I had a psychology professor once who hated making small talk on airplanes. But he lived in Texas, and every time he flew in or he flew out, there would inevitably be someone who sat next to him who would want to just chat it up. They'd ask, what do you do? Where are you from? Do you have kids? Etc., etc. And Dr. Singh was simply not interested. He despised it so much that he eventually had a business card made that said, "Sorry, I'm hard of hearing." He thought it was a harmless way of dodging the unwanted niceties of small talk. And so one time on a plane, however, someone sat next to him and started chatting it up and talking to him, and he opens his wallet, takes out the business card and shows them, and the person is like, "Oh, okay." And so everything is going as planned, and Dr. Singh falls asleep, something he does want to do on a plane. And then the beverage cart rolls by. The flight attendant asks each row, "Anything to drink?" And when it's their turn, Dr. Singh starts awake and says, "Yes, I'll have a Coke," much to the confusion of his seatmate. Now, I would imagine, depending on whether you are like Dr. Singh or his seatmate, the way you hear this story from the Gospel of John might hit differently. Some of us want to talk to strangers by the well. You are outgoing and gregarious. You make friends everywhere you go. You make small talk with the people around you. Yes, I'm looking at you, David Barnes. While others of us are now seriously considering how to make some fake business cards. Now, I don't know the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram of the Samaritan woman at the well. I don't know if she longed for conversation or if she longed to just get some time for herself. But here's what we do know. Culturally, she was there at the well at a time when no one else would ordinarily be there. Commentators often say that that's because she was ostracized and marginalized in her community. So she would go at the hottest time of the day to ensure that no one else would be there, to avoid the glares and the snide remarks of other people, likely women who would be drawing water. And perhaps that's true. Perhaps she was hiding in broad daylight. Again, we don't know the full circumstances of this woman's life, or how she came to have 5 husbands, or who it is that she's living with now. It may be for disreputable reasons, or it may be that she's just gone through some really tough times, like the death of multiple spouses and close family members. But it's clear that while there are rumors about her life and her situation, she hides much of the details. Why else would she be so astonished to hear Jesus speak of her life? It's likely that she herself has never spoken so candidly of her own life before. I find it fascinating that when the woman at the well expresses that she wants a drink of this living water that Jesus speaks of, he pivots the conversation to her own personal life. It's almost as if we cannot drink of this water that Jesus offers us unless we are honest about who we are first. Unless we are willing to be forthright with ourselves and others, unless we are willing to stop hiding. In 1983, the Presbyterian Church USA wrote a new confession called A Brief Statement of Faith. And in it, when it talks about sin, it says this: "But we rebel against God. We hide from our Creator." Hide. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing since the very beginning. It's what Adam and Eve did after eating of that forbidden fruit. They hid from God in the garden. And still today we try to hide. We hide the vulnerable parts of ourselves. We hide the parts of ourselves that desperately need the quenching of that living water. We hide our blemishes. We hide our doubts. We hide our fears. We hide behind our things, our clothes, our bank accounts, and our job titles. Back in 2004, Frank Warren started a blog called postsecret.com. He intended it to be a temporary community art project. He invited people to mail in postcards that had a secret written on it. The rules were that the secret needed to be anonymous and something you had never shared with anyone. Nearly 20 years later, Post Secret is still going strong today, generating thousands of postcards a week. Warren reads each one and picks 10 to 20 to post on his blog every Sunday. He writes that every single one is read, even if every single one is not shared. These secrets cover the emotional spectrum from humor to heartache, and a wide range of misdeeds from adultery to adolescent mischief, and even kind acts and life-saving and life-giving moments that only the writer knows about. People share things like, I wear a fake pair of glasses to work every day. I didn't have a mask when I went to the store, so I walked around the parking lot until I found one. Do not recommend. Today is the first AA meeting I'll attend. My husband doesn't even know. I'm scared that I won't be a good mother and my kids will end up hating me the way I do. Friends, we are hiding, but desperately want to be seen and known, so much so that we would send a stranger our deepest secrets. You would think in this world, where we can reach one another so easily, that we would know each other more intimately. But I think, if anything, social media has allowed us to hide even better than we could have imagined. Because now we curate what we want people to see and know about us. There is a sense that people now have full access to who we are, what we do, what we think. But really, it is often just another way of hiding our true selves and presenting who we think would be accepted. But then there's Jesus, sitting by that well where we go to hide in plain sight. And not only does he notice us, but he asks us for a drink of water, showing first his need and his vulnerability, and then showing us fully who we are and whose we are. Alice McKenzie writes, our Samaritan woman is not the only first century secret keeper. Everybody Jesus meets in the Gospel of John has a secret that they think he doesn't already know. There is the woman caught in adultery from chapter 8. We know what her secret is. There are the Pharisees and scribes who drag her to Jesus. Their postcard would read, we love the sound the stones make when they hit the sinner. There is Peter, who denies he ever knew Jesus, not once, but 3 times. His post-secret would read, fear fights with faith in my heart every day, and faith wins every day. There is Pilate's post-secret when they brought Jesus before him. I am Rome's puppet. I am the real prisoner, not Jesus. Secrets and shame eat away at us, robbing us of being fully known and loved, robbing us of true joy and gratitude. Perhaps being known and seen the way Jesus knows and sees us allows us to drink of the living water, because we can only truly live when we are known and when we understand our belovedness. Come and see a man who told me everything I have ever done. He cannot be the Messiah, can he? Honestly, I can't imagine hearing from someone everything I have ever done and then inviting others to go and meet this person. But that's the promise of Jesus and that living water. It washes away our shame. It washes away our need to hide. It covers us and claims us and welcomes us just as we are, even if who we are embarrasses us just a bit. I recently came across a tweet that resonates deeply with me. It said, "If you're embarrassed by the person you were 5 years ago, good. That means you've grown, you've educated yourself, and maybe even expanded your horizons." I love that mentality. It's a growth mindset, an embrace of that transformational new life which is possible through Christ. That right there is a resurrection mentality. Easter Sunday, every day. Now, living water to us as Christians today refers to something in particular, to that which quenches our soul as only Jesus can. But in his time, that phrase living water also meant water that is constantly changing because it is on the move. Water like you would find in a river or a stream, not stagnant water, but water that moves, changes, water that is living. Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher born 500 years before Jesus, said, "No one ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and they are not the same person." The water is new, but so are we. Imagine if we all stopped hiding who we are, embraced who we were, and knew that God loved us. Now, in some ways, some would argue that we have stopped hiding, it seems. At least in the last few years, there have been some revealing things in our country's life, some shocking and some disappointing. It does seem like members of the Ku Klux Klan who once hid behind robes have stopped wearing those hoods and have decided to film themselves destroying the Capitol instead. But even that display of violence and hate to me is a type of hiding from the fear that is actually felt and experienced. Maybe the violence we inflict upon others and ourselves is a result of our constant hiding, a hiding so deep that we are no longer recognizable. If we all took a moment, had the humility to see ourselves the way God sees us, and were willing to be transformed by the reflection Jesus puts before us, surely change would be possible not just in our own personal lives, but in the world. I believe it's possible because I have to believe it's possible. Hope keeps us going, and that living water, it keeps changing, and it keeps changing us. So to drink of that living water is to embrace that we are a new creation, invited to live a new life every day. To drink of that living water is to know that we are fully known by God and wholly loved by God. To drink of that living water is to shed the shame, to stop the hiding, and to live honestly and wholly from the heart. And we can drink of that living water because Jesus comes to sit beside us, breaking down all boundaries of what is proper and right, to tell us who we are, to tell us that we need not be afraid, and to invite us to drink deeply. Jesus sees you, all of you. And this community, as imperfect as we are, is also willing to see you. Maybe you are being called to take a risk today to sit by a well and attend a new members class. Maybe you are called to share more vulnerably and honestly with a community of faith. Maybe you are being called to share who you are with the young people of this community. However you are being called by God this morning, know that God sees you. This community longs to see you, and you are loved. So drink deep of this living water, and may we never thirst again. And with wells filled to the brim with God's grace, let us go out into a thirsty world. Thanks